Good morning, everyone, and welcome into this SEC Morning Report. It is Monday, October 16th, and we are excited to be reacting to another week of SEC football action. Guys, we're talking about what we learned with all of these teams that played on Saturday, even a couple that didn't play that were on bye week, some things that happened as well. So make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you want to partner with a company, a news outlet for SEC that covers SEC football, baseball, basketball every single day, then we are the place to do it. And you can hit up Caroline.Smith at Southeastern 14 to talk to us about advertising with us and being an MVP for Southeastern 14. But guys, let's go ahead and dive into what we learned about each of these teams. And, we usually go in alphabetical order, and we'll continue that this week and talk about Arkansas and Alabama as the two A schools there started to play against one another. Auburn, we'll get to them in a minute, but Arkansas and Alabama, okay? This is a game where Alabama started off hot. They came out. They jumped up, I believe, to a 21-6 lead, and it looked like it was going to get ugly. Right around halftime, it looked like, okay, this thing's going to be over. But I think you've just got to continue to give this Arkansas team, KJ Jefferson especially, just give them their flowers for how they continue to fight for Sam Pittman. I know that there's questions about Sam Pittman, and you got to win ball games at the end of the day. You don't get any moral victories in the SEC. They're not good enough up front right now. They continue to not be able to run the football with any kind of consistency, and KJ has to make these superhuman type plays to get their offense any kind of production, things like that. But my goodness, I just think the way that they fought and tried to stay in that game defensively, Landon Jackson was incredible. He just whipped Caden Proctor most of the day, and then anybody else they tried to put in front of him as well. Alabama's pass protection continues to have some issues there. They gave up 5 sacks on the day, guys, and that's week after week they're giving up 4 sacks, 5 sacks. I mean, the pass protection is an issue. They run the ball well enough, but this is a Alabama offense that just it's not going to be the prettiest in the world, but it's going to get results because they've got talent on the outside. Jalen Milroe gives guys chances to make plays. You can say what you want about how, there's a couple of throws each game that maybe leave you scratching your head a little bit, but he throws, for the most part, a catchable ball. Okay, the touch is there at times. He keeps plays alive. If Alabama had another quarterback in there, guys, that didn't have the athleticism of Jalen Milroe, he would be sacked, 6-7 times a game. I'm just telling you. Jalen Milroe does the best job for Alabama of keeping plays alive, still keeping his eyes downfield when he's navigating outside the pocket, and he makes plays in games that a lot of other guys can't. But he gives his receivers the ability and the chance to make a play. They drop too many footballs. I mean, different guys at different times dropping footballs for Alabama, and it really, against Arkansas, kind of became a epidemic there for a little while. I mean, 4 or 5 drops of footballs that were right in their hands, and Jalen Milroe should have had a lot better pass completion percentage on the day because he delivered the football with confidence, and he put it in places where they could make plays. Now, I think that Alabama against a Tennessee defensive front that's coming in there is going to have to find a way. I don't know if they're going to have to chip with a tight end off the edge on that left side, or if they're going to have to do some max protection type stuff, but active that it's going to make Alabama have to adjust and do some things different with them coming into town if they want to protect Jalen Milroe, because that front is active and that front gets after you particularly not only rushing the passer, but also in the run game as well. So that's going to be a matchup that we're going to look forward to all week as we continue to analyze games looking forward. But looking back, guys, Alabama, like I said, they're okay in the run game. McClellan is good. I don't think he's a great back by any means. I think he's tough as a pine knot, but I don't think he's an electric player. I'm still confused a little bit why guys like Jam Miller, like Justice Haynes, aren't getting more carries for that Alabama offense. I think they're more dynamic players. Maybe it has to do with the pass protection stuff. Maybe they haven't kind of got the learning curve yet. But I do know one thing. It's tough sledding if you're going to try to attack that Alabama defense, because Alabama in the back end, I think with Jalen Key kind of coming on now, playing some good football, in addition to what you have in Malachi Moore, Caleb Downs, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, plus the way the linebackers are playing with with Deontay Lawson playing great, and then what they have on the edges with Turner and Braswell. It's a tough Alabama defense, and they don't have to be great on offense, guys. They need to be efficient. They would probably like to be a little bit better on third down than they were this past game, only going 6 of 14. Arkansas, that was their problem, 4 of 14 on the day on third down. If they could have extended a few drives, who knows what happens in that game. But I think you got to give Arkansas credit for continuing to play hard. They've lost some really tough games, guys, here by a close margin. I mean, you look at this schedule that they've had. They lost to LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama by less than 7 points in a span of 4 weeks. Just tough, a tough deal. At LSU, at Ole Miss, at Alabama, all those on the road. And Texas A&M was a game they just didn't play very well in, and that was a neutral site game. So tough strength of schedule, tough schedule for Sam Pittman. You hate to see it for him. You hope they're able to turn it around and get a couple of W's right there, because I do think he's a very good fit for the program, but they've got to retool up front, and we'll see. We'll see what happens after the year and how they finish the year. But that is our recap of Alabama and Arkansas. The biggest concern for Alabama, I'm telling you, is at left tackle. Caden Proctor gets whipped like patent leather for a dance. I mean, it is rough. Landon Jackson took him to school, and I don't know that Elijah Pritchett will be much better. So Alabama's got to figure something out at left tackle. Now let's talk about Auburn. Auburn just is absolutely putrid offensively. They run the ball okay, but the RPO system is not clicking right now. Peyton Thorne doesn't have any kind of anticipation when these plays are coming open. There's guys, you look in second and long, third and long situation, there are some Auburn receivers coming open, and he just doesn't anticipate him and doesn't get the ball out on time. And when he does get it out on time, these guys can't separate very well. There's no dynamic playmakers on the edge for Auburn in terms of the perimeter on offense. Now, running the ball, I thought Jeremiah Cobb looked pretty good. Jarquez Hunter's always going to look pretty good. I mean, they do some okay things up front, but in the SEC, you have to have some balance, and you have to be able to create some explosive plays down the field. Their predicted points added on a per play basis, guys, 0.116. I mean, it is absolutely atrocious, or 0.167. If you round up 0.167, guys, the league average on predicted points added, that means based on the result of every individual play, on average, how many points does each play equate to, based on the yard line, down distance, all that kind of stuff in that formula. And the average for the league is almost 0.3. It's 0.299 points. Auburn's is less than half of that at 0.16. I mean, it is really, really rough on the offensive side of the ball. They play hard defensively, but guys, if you can't extend drives and you can't get things going, convert on third downs offensively, and your defense just stays out on the field, especially with all the injuries that Auburn has, you're just not going to have success. And that's the problem with Auburn right now and what they have going on. Florida, I would just like to say, I apologize to Graham Mertz. I was not a believer in Graham Mertz. I thought it was going to be a very, very rough year for Florida in terms of the quarterback position, and he has more than acquitted himself. He's played very well in some big moments, played he plays efficient more than anything. Yes, I see he's putting up some big numbers, but the biggest thing is he makes good decisions and he makes plays when they're needed for Florida. So that's a big positive for them because they didn't run the football well. South Carolina, I thought that South Carolina's defensive front was not very good at stopping the run. I thought that Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson could have a big day going into that game, and they were stymied a little bit. They were stifled. They couldn't get things going. But Graham Mertz said, "Don't worry, I'm gonna put the team on my back." 423 passing yards, hit Ricky Pearsall for I believe 165 of those yards. And when it comes down to it, Florida made enough plays to win that football game when they were needed. Now, defensively, I think Florida has a ton of issues when it comes to fitting the run and their gap integrity and responsibilities because Kentucky eviscerated them on the run, and South Carolina, who has not run the ball all year, looked like they were more than efficient running the football. Mario Anderson took it to them a little bit. I think there are concerns on that defense if you're Austin Armstrong. I think that, other than, if somebody takes away Ricky Pearsall offensively and says, hey, we're going to make sure that Ricky Pearsall does not beat us here, then there could be some problems for Florida offensively as well. The back half of Florida's schedule is really, really rough. You're talking about now they're going to have to play Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, Florida State. What do you guys think that the win-loss out of that is? I think if you come out of that 2-3, if you injected truth serum into Florida fans, they'd be like, okay, yeah, it's a good year. I mean, they've got 5 wins right now going into the bye week. And I think when you look at that, you're looking at a team that, okay, now, are they going to be able to sustain things going forward? You win 3 of those games, you got an 8-win season. And I said, if Billy Napier with this team, with the lack of talent on the perimeter, okay, the Graham Mertz situation at quarterback, which he's turned out to be far better, like I said, than anybody thought. I said, and there's tweets out there, people are retweeting them out. I said, if they win 8 games, Billy Napier deserves to be SEC Coach of the Year because he does not have some of the horses these other guys have. It's going to be very, very tough to get there with that schedule that they have remaining. But we'll see. We'll see how things go from here with Florida. I think just a huge tip of the cap, to Graham Mertz and the way he's playing Ricky Pearsall. If they can get healthy on the offensive line, they'll be a whole lot better. I think have more consistency in the run game. They struggle when Kinsley Aguakon is not there for them as he wasn't this past game. So Florida, kind of a wild card as you go forward. What are you going to get out of them? Got some very tough teams remaining. They get a bye week to heal up. Somebody else that has a bye week is the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia went on the road and played another sloppy game. I mean, guys, they start slow in some games. That's just how this Georgia team has done it. But then they'll hit you with a flurry of points, a flurry of big plays, things like that. And the mark of a good team, just like with Alabama, is can you find different ways to win football games? And Georgia has shown that. In fact, Georgia has shown that 40 out of the last 41 college football games they've won. The last 34 regular season games, Georgia has won. Their last 24 games overall, Georgia has won. The last 2 national championships, back-to-back national championships, Georgia has won. So Georgia finds ways to win football games. That's just the fact of it's not anything other than a fact of life. Georgia finds ways to win football games. Carson Beck continued to play pretty good, had a couple of drops on the day where he should have probably been 32 of 39 instead of 29 of 39. Had one interception, ball was tipped. But the biggest difference with Carson Beck is, he not only after that ball was intercepted, he sprinted and made a tackle at the 1-yard line. That's a different Carson Beck than we've seen in years past, where the body language would have been down. He wouldn't have gave max effort chasing that guy. So I think that's a That's a leadership thing. That's how you kind of continue to win over some teammates. Dejan Edwards continues to be maybe the most important player, for Georgia right now, especially with the injury to Brock Bowers, because he's just so consistent running the football. You can't rely on Kendall Milton because he can't stay healthy. Unfortunately for that young man, he cannot stay healthy. His MCL kind of tightened up on him. Hopefully that the bye week he can get some rest and get full strength for Georgia there, because they're going to need all the health and stuff like that they can get after the bye week. I think when you're talking about the Brock Bowers situation, okay, if he's out for any time, if he has to have something cleaned up in his ankle, or if there's some kind of deal where he has to have a procedure and he's out, 4 or 6 weeks, something along those lines, Georgia still has the weapons to win, especially with their defense. When their defense is playing at full capacity on all cylinders, Georgia has the depth, has the talent to win every game they have in front of them, even without Brock Bowers. Dominic Lovett has not really been, full scale, just totally integrated into this offense. He's been more of change up type, throw it out on the perimeter thing of that nature. But I think there will be two players, three really, that get a lot more work going forward if you see Brock Bowers miss any time. One, Ladd McConkey has been just kind of a pseudo factor to this point because his back has been bothering him and things like that. I think he's going to be fully healthy, ready to go after this bye week, headed into Florida. Healthy Ladd McConkey, that's a big thing. One, Dominant Lovett, that's another one. And two, we know what kind of weapon he was at Missouri. We know that he's done some good things for Georgia this year. 9 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown for Georgia in this last game, the most production that he's had in terms of the number of catches, targets, things of that nature. I don't think there's any coincidence in that with Brock Bowers being out. And then Oscar Delp, that third one, I'm going to make kind of a combo between Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. Oscar Delp, guys, is a tight end that would start at any school in the country, in my opinion, at tight end. If he's not the starter, he's the guy coming in when you go 12 personnel. He's the 1B to whoever the 1A is, because Oscar Delp was an All-American player coming out of high school. He's just big, talented, physical, getting better at the run blocking game. Can do a lot of the same stuff in terms of route running and the catching ability. He's not as good after the catch as Brock Bowers, but who is? I mean, that is, losing Brock Bowers, if they do for any amount of time, would be a huge blow in terms of, I think he's the best player in all of college football. But Georgia is not without weapons that they can spread the ball around to. Dominant Lovett, Ladd McConkey, Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, who was heavily recruited, tight end as well, that turned some head in the spring. Ra Thomas is still kind of, getting involved in this pro style system here for Georgia. Dylan Bell is another name. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson. I mean, they've got a ton of guys. And if Arian Smith ever decides to catch a football right now, his confidence is kind of shot a little bit, then they'll have an opportunity to, continue to spread the ball around Carson Beckwell and to continue to be very productive offensively. It'll change the look of things maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit less 12 personnel at times, things like that. But, I think Georgia's still got plenty of weapons, and we'll see what happens probably later this week. We'll see, a final deal on Brock and what's going on over there. Defensively, I think Georgia's going to be absolutely fine. They had one really busted coverage, poor communication on a thing. Vanderbilt was trying to focus on getting the ball out quick, not allowing that pass rush to be a factor, which was smart on Vanderbilt's part. But, on the back end, guys, I think Georgia's playing pretty well. Other than that miscommunication, their safety room is as good as anybody in the country, especially when Dan Jackson is available back there to give even more depth. He got sick before the game, wasn't able to play. Maybe at some point this year they get Tyron Ingram Dawkins back up front and provide some more depth up front. But, guys, this Georgia defense, I think, like I said, until somebody beats Georgia, you just have to say Georgia's the best team in the country until someone beats them. I think that's the way it goes, because when you're talking about a team that finds different ways to win ball games, that's them. They've had slow starts. They've come back and won. They've looked dominant at times and been able to, do it with defense. They've done it with offense. So I'm not worried about Georgia at all. I think they'll get healthy over this bye week and kind of bounce back right into things. All right, Kentucky. Kentucky started off fast, but guys, if you're the Kentucky Wildcats, you have to be just devastated with the level of quarterback play you're getting by Devin Leary. A total kind of bait and switch deal. They were in it for both Graham Mertz and Devin Leary this offseason in terms of guys that they could have gotten. And I just don't think that it ended up making the right decision. And it's not one that you would say, hey, that was an obvious deal, because Devin Leary was fantastic at NC State. He really was. But he has not been this year. And when he does make good throws, his wide receivers have let him down. We talked all offseason about how Dane Key, Tavion Robinson, Barian Brown, Anthony Brown, all these guys were going to be big-time targets for Kentucky and make big plays and all that kind of stuff, and they just haven't. They haven't, guys. There's not been enough to complement Ray Davis at times. That defense, gave up some big plays to Missouri. Now, Missouri is 9th in the country, guys, in terms of passes of 20 yards or more on the year. So it's not like it's a shocking thing that you're going to give up some big plays to Missouri, but they couldn't get stops when they needed to. And I think that Kentucky, it's a disappointment, guys. It's just that's a disappointment, because that's a Kentucky team that I think expects more out of themselves. They expect more discipline than that, and they were not disciplined. Continue to have dumb penalties, continue to hurt themselves a little bit. And like I said, Devin Leary, 2 turnovers on the day, couldn't kind of pull things out of the fire when they needed him to. So that's just really rough. 5 of 12 on third down. They couldn't get off the field enough against Missouri. Missouri was 6 of 14 on third down and 1 of 1 on fourth down, and had 68 total plays. Anytime you give 68 total plays to a talented team like Missouri that's got all those weapons offensively, you're going to give up some big plays. But, it wasn't like a stellar offensive performance for Missouri. I mean, 324 yards total. They threw an interception on the day. But ultimately, when you lose the turnover battle and you're not able to extend drives in Kentucky, that's what happens. And that's why they lost this football game. So you hate to see it for this Mark Stoops squad. I mean, their squad I was very, very high on. And I think they've vastly underperformed and underachieved in terms of what they had an opportunity to do this year. Now, going forward, Kentucky, they've got a bye week before they play Tennessee at home. So they will get another chance to bounce back at Kroger Field there. Mississippi State before they play Alabama, and then end the year with South Carolina and Louisville. And that Louisville game looks a lot harder now, even though Louisville lost on a game to Pitt that they shouldn't have lost. They've also won some good games this year as well. So not an easy back end of the schedule for Kentucky. Now, let's talk a little bit about Mississippi State. They were on a bye week. Guys, when you're talking about Mississippi State, the biggest question for them is, Will Rogers going to be healthy? Is Woody Marks going to be healthy? Is Justin Robinson going to be healthy when they go to Arkansas? I think that's the biggest thing. And also cleaning things up on the defensive side of the ball, guys. They've just not been good enough, not been the type of defensive team that you would think they would be under Zach Arnett. So are they able to get some of those things cleaned up and get some guys healthy in the bye week? That's what you've learned this week about Mississippi State. About those Missouri Tigers, let's talk about them that we just talked about with Kentucky. Brady Cook continues to find ways to play really well in football games. He didn't start off the hottest in the world. This isn't the most dynamic performance that he's had, and especially statistically. But when you look at it, that fake punt that they executed by Luke Bauer really picked up a lot of momentum for them. Cody Schrader continues to be tough. Again, nothing was elite for Missouri, but they just find ways to win football games. They find ways to create turnovers. They capitalized off of those turnovers. Luther Burden went down, and they showed the depth that they have by Theo Wees and Mookie Cooper, Marquise Johnson, Brett Norfleet, all these guys stepping up, making plays for Missouri. And that was encouraging to see. You hope Luther Burden, whatever that injury was, it doesn't become something nagging, and make sure that he's, not feeling the effects of that long term. They do get a bye week after South Carolina. So let's see what Eli Drinkwitz has to say in press conferences this week. But it's just a Missouri team that, like I said, good teams can win games in different ways. And Missouri is proven to us that they are a good team. They've won some games very low scoring. They've won some games where they've had to be shootouts and put up a lot of points. So I think it shows a maturity level out of not only the Missouri players, but also out of Eli Drinkwitz. I think him turning the reins over offensively to Kirby Moore was a huge decision this offseason. I think it has really helped spring this program forward and given Eli Drinkwitz more time to be a CEO of this program, worry about things with recruiting, NIL, boosters, just time management, logistics of this program. And I think you're starting to see the ripple effects of that. Plus, they've got some, like I said, some talented playmakers, and they're playing very well. A couple of key decisions in that LSU game, and a couple of mistakes they get back, they could easily be undefeated right now. So Missouri is a legit team. Missouri has an opportunity to beat a South Carolina team at home this weekend and be 7-1 going into the bye week. They're 6-1 right now. They could be 7-1 going into a bye week that they would get before playing Georgia in Athens. So pretty much everything going Missouri's way right now. And you really got to tip your cap to Eli Drinkwitz and company and how they're going about their business. Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss was on a bye, they sustained a key injury in Jordan Watkins, the receiver, a hand injury that's going to keep him out for some time. So now the question is, who steps up across from Trey Harris over there? Trey Harris, Caden Prieskorn are kind of, guys that they've been battling some injury stuff themselves. Now they're getting healthy, and you lose Jordan Watkins, who's been Mr. Consistency, 36 catches, 536 yards, a couple of touchdowns on the year, really kind of a security blanket at times for Jackson Dart. And now they've got to go on the road, guys. Ole Miss does in this game that they're going to play this week at Auburn. So can they, find someone against a pretty good Auburn defense that is going to step up across from Trey Harris? Is that Zachary Franklin, the UTSA transfer? Does he finally kind of break out and do some stuff here? Is that Aiden Williams, a young receiver that with a ton of talent that they're expecting a lot out of? So we'll see who steps up in this game for Ole Miss across from them in terms of the receiving side as another threat at a wide receiver beside Trey Harris. Quinshot Junkins was starting to run the ball a little bit better before the bye week, so we'll see if they can get the offensive line going there. They've done some things a little bit different schematically than they did early on last year. So are they going to get back to being able to get him going? And they started to get that momentum going a little bit. Ulysses Bentley's played really well, so I'm excited to see what Ole Miss looks like coming out of this bye week. Ole Miss has got a real opportunity, I think, to reel off 3 wins here with at Auburn, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M. I think they can win all of those games. I think then they go to Georgia. That'll be a tough one. And then ULM, Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. I think they have a real opportunity to go 5-1 there in this back half of the season. And that would be a huge deal for them. They're 5-1 right now. I mean, you could easily see, I think, a 10-win season coming here for Ole Miss with the way they're playing right now, especially they get a couple guys healthy. They start running the football a little bit better like Lane Kiffin wants to, and it's going to be an exciting time for the people in Oxford over there. South Carolina. Man, let's talk about South Carolina. Let's talk about Shane Beamer. shall we? Uh, Shane Beamer comes to the microphone, one very similar to this, a microphone, and he comes to it after the letdown loss where they jumped out big on Florida, couldn't execute on third and fourth down defensively, missed a bunch of open field tackles, um, all the kind of things that you do if you're really an undisciplined team. And then what Shane Beamer does is he takes, if you go into your laundry room right now, you're probably going to see a bin, right? That you throw the clothes in when you are done wearing them. They need to be washed, right? And we call that your dirty laundry. And what Shane Beamer does, he comes and he basically took that hamper of dirty laundry and poured it out on the table for reporters and God and everybody to see, and started talking about, hey, me and my coaches, basically, this was the effect of it, the way it came across. Me and my coaches called the perfect calls on these plays versus what Florida was doing, and our players decided not to do what we told them to do. That is what he said. He said, we called pressures. We didn't run the pressures. We called a corner blitz. They got stopped. He didn't run it the way we were supposed to. He went on a list of things that South Carolina players were instructed to do, but did not do. So what does this say? Then he just at the very end throws in, but me and my coaches got to do a better job of getting them to do what they're doing. That's just kind of him having something to refer back to. But he said the quiet part out loud. And I think if you're going to want your players to play for you, you can never, ever throw them under the bus like that in public. You can't do it unless they do something that's like a penalty, like some of Mark Stoops' players here recently where it's, just dumb personal fouls, selfish type stuff, then that is what it is. But if it's a scheme thing or not able to adjust thing, or maybe it was confusion that Florida starts off in this formation and motions and the call changes and somebody doesn't get it, somebody does, stuff like that, then you have to take all of that as the coach. You have to absorb every single bit of that, and he did not do that. And I think it is unbecoming of an SEC head coach. I think it shows immaturity that there's always finger pointing in South Carolina. I think that Shane Beamer's way of going about his leadership is a big reason that South Carolina will never be successful during his tenure. Not truly successful. They'll win a couple of games that they're not supposed to win, but South Carolina is not where they need to be in year 3 of this Shane Beamer program to be considered going in the right direction. In my part, I think this is a highly disappointing year in terms of how they've played along both of the lines of scrimmage. I know they don't have any talent, but on the lines of scrimmage, maybe Tonka Hemingway on the defensive side, but a lot of your players have left via the transfer portal. You haven't replaced them well. I know you're saying that Shane Beamer recruits well, but how many of those recruits are actually going to come if you continue to look embarrassing on Saturdays? Spencer Rattler's playing his guts out. I mean, he does everything you can ask a guy to do. He's another guy that I didn't think because of what this South Carolina program was, I didn't think he'd have a whole lot of success, but he has put the team on his back and he's done a great job. I mean, he continues to make plays. Xavier Leggett plays great. Tries to do a ton for this team, especially with Juice Wells out. They're doing everything you could ask them to do offensively. I think Dow Loggins is doing a pretty good job. But Clayton White and that defense, way too many missed tackles, way too many busted coverages. The inability to get off the field on third and fourth down is glaring for South Carolina. And if Shane Beamer says what he says is true and his players are outright just not doing what they tell them to do, then here's the thing. I was told when I was a coach that if your players make a mistake or if your players are doing something wrong, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. So which is it, Shane? What are you doing there in South Carolina? So I just don't believe in that program right now. I don't believe in the way they're going about doing things. And I definitely had an issue with how the post game press conference with, and I think some of those players probably will as well. Now let's talk about Tennessee and Joe Milton. Okay. Then what we learned here is that Joe Milton is who we kind of all thought he was before the season, an inaccurate quarterback that doesn't have the capability of just making routine plays at times that need to be made. Joe is not playing at a high enough level, not anticipating throws well enough. I think he got a little happy feet sometimes, took off and ran a little bit early. And quite honestly, that needs to be a bigger element of his game going forward, because he's not seeing the field well. He's not delivering the ball with confidence a lot of the times. And when he does, he did see a wide open Ramel Keaton dropped the ball. So much like with Kentucky's passing game, when the quarterback does it right, the receivers do it wrong. So I think that is it's perplexing for Tennessee, who was so good through there last year, obviously with Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, and Cedric Tillman. I don't think people realized just how big of a blow that was going to be. But we did here at Southeastern 14 and told you that it was going to be a rough sledding in terms of Tennessee in the passing game. I think you got to give a ton of credit to that offensive line, Cooper Mays, all those guys up front, and how they were able to run the football against a very good Texas A&M front. Now, it helped them that Edgerrin Cooper exited that game with an injury. Walter Nolan exited that game with an injury, so they weren't, necessarily playing the full complement of the Texas A&M run defense over there. But Tennessee is become a team that is going to win by running the football and playing good defense. That is what that's what they're gonna have to do to win football games. Now, they have to go third Saturday in Alabama. Third Saturday in October, they got to go to Alabama. They got to go on the road to Kentucky after that. Kentucky obviously has not been playing well, but it's always tough to win on the road in the SEC, and they got back-to-back games that are going to be physical there. You can say what you want about Kentucky right now, but playing a Kentucky team after you've played an Alabama team, that's a physical contest. Then you have UConn at home, which should be, easy enough. And then you have to go on the road to Missouri. So in 4 weeks, they have 3 road games in 4 weeks that are going to be physical, that they know that they're going to have played a really tough football game. The Texas A&M game was physical. So I'm be interested to see how they are, what Josh Heupel says about some injuries and people banged up and stuff like that when he has his press conference today. But just physical football games. Joe Milton's going to have to be better if they want a chance to do the things that they want to do in this back half of this schedule against Alabama, against Georgia, against Missouri for that matter. On the road at Missouri, not going to be easy at all the week before they play Georgia on November 11th. So I think in order to be better, they're going to have to have more balance. Joe Milton is going to have to just make the routine throws, which he has not done at times. And I think they're also going to have to start using Joe Milton's legs more, whether that's option, whether that's design quarterback runs, things like that. I think that's a key for them. But they're playing really, really good defensively, creating a lot of havoc, whether it's, Pierce, Beasley, Barron. I mean, these guys get after you a lot, and I think you have to give them a lot of credit for the way that Josh Heupel's kind of seeing what the identity of his football team is and starting to play that way a little bit. So credit to Tennessee in terms of that. Now let's look at Texas A&M. If you're Texas A&M, I think you just have to be extremely frustrated, because that is a game that you had every opportunity to win. Yes, it was on the road. Yes, it's tough to win on the road in the SEC, but there was opportunity after opportunity for Max Johnson and that offense to make its way down the field, because listen, their defense was doing a good enough job to know that Tennessee wasn't going to just go down and put points on the board. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. And they could not Pia drop late in that game, 16-34. Not gonna cut it for Max Johnson. He was careless with the ball at times, threw 2 picks. Just looks ugly sometimes. Doesn't step into throws. His mechanics are an issue, so I think that's a problem there. They couldn't run the ball well enough. Only 54 yards rushing on the day when you account for take the sacks come off of that total as well. But even with the sacks taken off, it wasn't over 100 yards rushing. So I mean, it's tough way to win if you're Texas A&M. Only 5 of 15 on third down. They were 0 of 2 on fourth down. And here's the thing, guys. I said it coming into the game. Last game, okay, Texas A&M against Alabama only got Evan Stewart and Anai Smith 7 touches. I said, hey, that is a dereliction of duty. That is malpractice. If you are a head coach or offensive coordinator, you have to get your best players touches. Guess how many Evan Stewart and Anai Smith had in this game? They had a total of 5. Anai Smith had 1 catch for 20 yards. And a lot of that was because they were trying to drop back and let stuff develop down the field. You need to get the ball out of Max Johnson's hands as quickly as possible, do some now screens, get the guys on going on jet sweeps, doing whatever you do, line Anai Smith up in the backfield if you have to. I have no idea whose idea it was not to say, hey, let's force feed the ball to the 2 guys that can make plays for us and be dynamic. But my goodness, what are you doing offensively? It was ugly. It was atrocious. That offensive line got whooped at times by Tennessee's defensive front. And here we are, however many years into the Jimbo Fisher era, and everybody's still asking, hey, how big is that buyout now? Because guys, it just doesn't seem to be getting any better. Now, I know with Connor Wigman, it may be a different story for this Texas A&M team, but they do not coach in a way that is good enough. You have to find ways to design plays to get the ball in Evan Stewart and Anai Smith's hands. Period. I bet you Evan Stewart will not be at Texas A&M next year. He's going to hit the portal. No doubt about it in my mind. You've got to find ways to get him the football. Ridiculous play design, not being good enough up front at this point in the Jimbo Fisher era, not good enough. At this point, I know Le'Veon Moss tries to run hard, but why are you not, just force feeding the ball to Reuben Owens as well? I know he got 5 carries on the day, but heck, he needs to be playing and touching the ball a lot as well. So it's just kind of disgusting on the offensive side of things. I think Texas A&M's defense, especially with the injuries to Edgerrin Cooper, and especially with the injury to Walter Nolan, I thought they played tough. Thought they played hard. The secondary played a little bit better. A lot of that had to do with how bad Joe Milton was, but there it is. There it is out of Texas A&M. It's just the question is it ever going to be good enough? Is it ever going to change with Jimbo Fisher as the head coach? I guess we'll see. Vanderbilt, you got to give them credit for a lot of their game plan. They got the ball out quick, made some plays with their receivers. Thought that Taylor on defense played extremely hard, Zach Taylor. So, hey, kudos to Clark Lee and company for designing a good game plan, coming up with, ways to be creative, but that just not enough talent there in the end. The NIL situation, is not great for Vanderbilt. Of course, the academic standards are kind of prohibitive when you're talking about transfer portal, stuff like that. So I just do not know how Clark Lee is ever going to acquire enough talent to be in the position he needs to be. But I thought Ken Seals, you got to give him credit. I thought Ken Seals played pretty well. And, maybe they'll find a way with Auburn and South Carolina later this year to get a victory. Who knows? Maybe they can go on the road in Columbia and find a way to win, or maybe they can win at home against Auburn. That environment is not a great environment for football. I think it kind of puts everybody to sleep a little bit with that construction and stuff going on there. So who knows, guys? Who knows with Vanderbilt? You got to find a way to acquire talent, and I'm not sure that it's not on Clark Lee. I think it's more of an administrative type thing and just an institutional thing that it's going to be hard to do so. Guys, we hope that you've enjoyed this this show, this Reaction Monday show, what we've learned about each SEC team after week 7. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll go live. We have a live show every day with Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, Gavin Schoenwald, and then also Noshawn Marino and myself. Yes, that SEC legend, Noshawn Marino, myself, Tavares King, also an SEC legend in my opinion, all go live on Wednesday nights at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. So you want to catch that. Jake Crane on Fridays with us with Jake's Takes. Brian Edwards giving betting picks. So there's so much content here during football season. Basketball's about to get cranked up. Blake Lovell, Chris Lee, they'll have you covered on that. So like I said, if you want daily SEC coverage, this is the place for it. If you want to advertise with a company and appeal to that SEC fan base, then this is the place to do it. We're growing like crazy. The subscribers are going up by the day, and that's a lot. Thank you to you guys. So be an MVP of Southeastern 14 and advertise with us. You can reach out to Caroline.Smith at Southeastern 14. For everyone at Southeastern 14, I'm Blayne Gilmer. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time to talk more SEC football right here on your place for daily coverage, Southeastern 14.